One strike, certain death. Ichigeki Hisatsu. That was Masuyama's philosophy. It sounds violent, maybe even extreme, but it was never just about fighting. It was about how you live, how you train, how you meet every challenge in life. Let's go through this. What if approaching everything, work, relationships, training, even the smallest of tasks in your day, with the same intensity as fighting in the ring? No half effort, no hesitation, just total commitment in the moment you're in. Let's explore the story behind Ichigeki Hisatsu, how it became the heart of Kyokushin karate, and most importantly, how you can apply this mentality to your own life. Masuyama did not invent the phrase, one strike, certain death, but he embodied it like no one else did before him. Post-war Japan was a harsh environment. People were rebuilding, scraping lives together, scraping food together, searching for meaning. Oyama believed karate couldn't just be for show. It had to be real, practical, and deadly effective. In the dojo, he drilled students relentlessly, endlessly. Kihon, kata, kumite. But the core lesson wasn't about perfection of form. It was about intent. If you throw a punch, throw it like your life depends on it. If you kick it to end the fight. For Oyama, half effort was worse than no effort. The mountain exile that he undertook for 18 months at a time, I think he did it once or twice. You can listen to our other episodes where we go through some of that. But that was about stripping away personal weakness, about finding the strength to live each moment as though it mattered to him. And Ichigeki Hisatsu became the essence of Kyokushin. It became the essence of who he was and how he lived. Not just physical power, but the mindset of that full commitment. Legends stick because they illustrate principles in action. And Oyama's life was full of them. Like 100-man kumite. Okay? 100-man fight. Imagine facing 100 black belts, one after the other, in full contact fighting. Most people would crumble after a few rounds, but Oyama fought through all of them, and then he did it again on other occasions. Or his fighting bull stories. Yes, he actually fought bulls, breaking their horns with his bare hand. Partly demonstration, partly myth-making, partly circus, but undeniably a symbol of one-strike philosophy. There was his everyday training. Students remembered him breaking rocks, kicking trees until they split, demanding repetition after repetition until technique and mindset were fused as one. To outsiders, this seems brutal. But to Oyama and other Kyokushin practitioners, it was the only way to live out this Ichigeki Hisatsu mindset. The body has to be tested, the mind has to be hardened until every action carries absolute intent. This is a lot of what people like David Goggins are always telling us about. Let's pause here. Ichigeki Hisatsu isn't about being reckless or bloodthirsty. It's about clarity, okay? It's about removing that hesitation. When you approach a challenge with half-hearted effort, your chances of success greatly diminish. When you hesitate, you leave openings. When you go in with full commitment, whether that's a punch, a business pitch, or a difficult conversation, you maximize your power. Kyokushin karateka are trained to embody this with every strike. No tapping, no pulling punches. Every blow must be delivered as though it's decisive. That doesn't mean you go around fighting people to the death all the time, especially in your training, but it means you train your body and your mind to remove that option of holding back. But this is not just a concept. It's tested in the dojo through through a thing called Tamishiwari, and that's breaking. You've probably seen that before. Now, these guys are legit as opposed to more modern sport karate, which is not arguably, but clearly kind of a joke. But boards, tiles, breaks, even stones. Kyokushin practitioners use them not to show off, not in a sports setting, but to prove their intent with their strike. Okay, Oyama believed that Tameshiwari reveals the truth of your technique. Right? If your strike is weak, if your strike is unfocused, or you hesitate, it won't break. But when you deliver a strike with conviction, with focus, with belief, body, mind, spirit aligned, the object gives way. Okay? Tamishiwari literally means test breaking in Japanese. Okay? It's been part of martial arts for centuries. Its purpose is not to impress audiences, which is what it's largely used for today, but it's to test, in reality, it's to test a practitioner's technique, focus, and spirit, like we discussed. In early days of Japanese karate, Tamishiwari was used to measure striking power and precision. Practitioners would break, like we said before, like roof tiles, boards, stones, bats, glasses, like a beer bottle. I'm sure you've seen in Karate Kid where Mr. Miyagi breaks the beer bottles off the front of the truck. Proves that your technique can deliver real impact, okay? The energy of your strike isn't just for show or isn't real, but that it is real. And by the mid-20th century, Masayama elevated Tamishiwari into a defining piece of Kyokushin karate. So for Oyama, breaking wasn't about destruction, it was about proof, okay? Again, being weak or hesitant means you'll fail. Kyokushin fighters became famous for these feats, right? But Oyama always reminded his students that Tamishiwari was not for building your ego. It was for forging strength, your confidence, and your mental focus. So in other words, Tamishiwari isn't about breaking the material. It's about breaking the limits within yourself. That's Ichigeki Hisatsu in physical form. One strike, certain result, certain death. Oyama would often demonstrate Tamishiwari himself, breaking multiple boards, multiple tiles, even river rocks with his bare hands, but not just for spectacle, right? But as a lesson to his students. Strength without focus is wasted energy. True power comes from unity of intent and action. He used to say, breaking is not about destruction, it's about creation, the creation of spirit through focus. I hope you get that. I'm driving this home. In many ways, Tameshiwari is meditation in motion. It forces you to face your fear, to commit fully, and to trust in your training. That's the same energy but behind Ichigeki Hisatsu. When you step up, you don't hold back. You give everything you have in that one perfect moment. Think about how powerful that approach can be outside of the dojo. Imagine if every time you stepped up to bat in a project or in your relationships or whatever, you treated it like that, right? You give it everything you have. No retreat, no self-doubt, just presence. That's the essence of the mindset. Let's bring it home a little bit. How do we actually live this out, okay? So let's go through 4 things here. So 1, focus on one decisive action. So instead of trying to do 10 things at once, identify one thing that moves you forward. Focus, commit, and execute on that one thing. I have to constantly remind myself of this. 2, remove any hesitation. We hesitate because we're scared, right? We have fear. Fear of failure, fear of embarrassment, fear of discomfort, fear of pain. Ichigeki Hisatsu teaches us to move anyway. It's better to fail at full speed than to succeed at half effort, right? If you're going to fail, fail fast. 3, train like it matters. Oyama didn't go into the wilderness and punch trees for fun. He did it to train his mind to give everything in the moment. When you practice, when you study, when you work out, treat it as though your life depends on it, because oftentimes it can. And then 4, live fully. This is bigger than martial arts. It's about living without retreat, being fully present in your relationships and your conversations, being decisive with your goals and the effort you put into achieving your goals. When you choose a path, walk it without looking back. You don't need to fight bulls. You don't need to fight 100 black belts, but you can fight distraction, comfort, and doubt. And every time you strike against those things, do it with 1 strike, 1 kill focus. Ichigeki Hisatsu. It's a silly sounding thing, but 1 strike, certain death. Okay? For Kyokushin karate, this is the essence of what it is. But for the rest of us, I am myself not a Kyokushin practitioner, although I do practice karate. But for most of us, it's a reminder that the way we do anything should be with full intent, full power, and no hesitation. Most people move through life half asleep, dabbling in this and that, second guessing things, holding back for what I don't know. But the way of the warrior is different. The way of the warrior is to make every action count. So here's my challenge. Pick 1 area of your life, your training, your work, your relationship, and this week, approach it with this 1 strike, certain death mindset. Step in with commitment. Strike with everything you have. Don't retreat. Don't hesitate. Be decisive. In the end, life itself is Ichigeki Hisatsu. You have 1 life. You often get 1 strike. So make it count.